Well, again, welcome to SEMA 2013. As I mentioned, this is going to be a fun session. Yesterday, we focused on racing. We had Mike Helton from NASCAR. We had lots of cool folks from Wilfred Eibach to Jim Campbell to Jamie Allison from Ford, really focusing on the vehicle technology and the future of motorsport. And then we had a great session. Something new that we added was the Gen Y millennial racers, designers, and engineers. What do they want to see in cars? And is racing still cool? Is performance still cool? And some of the answers they gave were phenomenal. We had Kinsey Rooston, Darrell Wallace, the first African-American to win a NASCAR national race in 50 years. Pretty cool stuff. And some of their answers, who were their idols? Who do they want to be like? Some of them had idols, some of them wanted a rival as an idol. Really cool stuff. But kind of moving forward, we're going to focus on branding today. And you see the four icons that we have all around the vehicle technology center here. It's basically driving green, driving connected, driving safe, and driving cool. And all of that gets manifested in the brand. Again, the brand being basically your contract with the customer. What do you mean? What do you stand for? What are you to me? How are you part of my life? That's what the brand is from a consumer perspective. And we're going to be talking about that. The driving cool is a big part of what we'll be doing here. These are just some of the umbrella thoughts to get some of your thoughts going. And by the way, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end after each of the speakers speaks for about 10 minutes or so to position their thoughts and key messages. So it'll be your chance to interact. So if you have questions, let's wait till the speakers are all done, then we'll have a Q&A with everyone to get interaction. And disagree or agree, it doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. Basically, design and basically the technology and the branding requires new thinking, particularly after the recession, 08, 09. It got tough. Some companies didn't survive. The design thinking, if you will, the right brain, the creative, the styling, that's where that comes in together as the product. But the social thinking is what drives the marketing and branding, what I'll call the social context. Think of your product as the content and the social packaging as the context. Brand democracy, turning your brand over to the consumer. It's a hell of a scary thing to do. Fiesta movement, Scion, a lot of companies that did start doing that in the automotive world, but we're going to hear from Aaron Levant in the action sports world, and apparel industry, and fashion, turning your brand over to the consumer. What do they do with your brand? Those types of things, but making the consumer part of your story, your brand. And then going to the Gemba. Gemba is a Japanese term, Genchi Genbutsu, which means go to the place of action and value creation. You can't Google the answers you need, literally today. You have to go out to the front line where the meaning is created, where your product is, where your brand is manifested or killed. And with social media, it's everywhere. It's instant. We heard some of our speakers yesterday. One of our racers lost a great contract with a sponsor because he was at a party and someone snapped a shot. Bingo. Monday after the race, he was not sponsored. So again, a lot of things to keep thinking about with the social media, going to the Gemba, the place of action. Mr. Honda had a great quote. Before the technology, there must be a way of thinking. And today, it is a new way of thinking. I like to say that brand democracy is killing the focus group. And you need to. You need to get out there and learn yourself. Your product is your content. As I said, the social packaging is the context. You have to market with consumers, not to them. Again, technology is the content. The packaging is the context. Consumers don't buy your products. They don't buy a Galpin Ford. They buy what the Galpin Ford does for them. And that's really what keeps them coming back. And I know, well, you probably have some customers probably come back 40 times in a lifetime, right? That's phenomenal. That's the brand. That's what I'm talking about, the context. Helping fans tell their story, not yours. When you are part of their story, you are truly the brand of choice because they will tell everybody, particularly like your daughter here, Bo. That gets manifested and goes viral quick, doesn't it? Good or bad. So you got to be there. Social context first, product technology second. Awareness is nothing. Foot traffic at the agenda show, foot traffic at a Galpin store is nothing. It's got to turn them into choices of mindset so that is their choice. That is the first thing that they tell people to do. I want to go to the agenda show. It's not just gate people or butts on the seats or people through the door. It's getting beyond awareness to that choice of mindset, and that choice is what they want to tell people about. People buy on emotion and justify with logic. It's as simple as that. It's a top-down perspective when you're thinking about the product. It's a bottom-up perspective when you're thinking about the brand, and you need both. One gentleman that certainly understood that extremely well was Steve Jobs. And he had a great quote here, that great technology is invisible. It's not just what it looks and feels like. The design is much more than that. And as I get older, there's so much wisdom to learn from Steve Jobs. I like to tell folks I've got a lot of dots to connect from different industries I've been part of. And Steve really recognized that, because he said the more dots you have to connect in your life, the better product or the better consumer experience you will create. And again, that was certainly manifested by Apple and a lot of other great companies here at the SEMA show, and that we'll be talking today. So connecting the dots. This is something I developed when I was at No Fear years ago. That I say there's 6 stages of cool in developing a brand. Starts at the fringe, goes to the edge, goes to the realm, and then the next big thing. And then it goes mainstream, and then once you're mainstream, you're probably extinct. Where do most companies start? Looking for the next big thing, right? That's what I talk about, going to the Gemba. The Gemba is the fringe and the edge, but that's where the zealots live. I mean, you got to be pretty authentic and pretty bold to be part of that community. One great example will be out here with Global Rallycross. When Ford and some of the other manufacturers jumped into that was a pretty bold move, making Rallycross more of an arena motocross style, bringing the race to the fans in a stadium-type atmosphere. They had to get to the zealots, people like Ken Block and Gymkhana, some of those things going on. I would probably submit that your father, Bo, was probably one of the zealots of customization, doing it long before anyone else. Your grandfather, right? Long time ago. So quite cool. And then moving through that. And again, the point is that you move through those zealots to enthusiasts, which you see here at the SEMA show, probably some zealots as well. And then the cohorts and segments of the mass. But once everyone has it, kind of to paraphrase one of I think the best philosophers in the world was Yogi Berra. And he said, no one buys it anymore, it's too cool. Or no one goes to that restaurant anymore, it's too crowded. There's a lot of irony in what Yogi Berra had to say. The point is, once everyone has it, it's no longer cool. They want something different. So personalization, part of the branding process we'll be talking about. Kano model is something that I put together, but basically if you think of the cool factor or your brand and the satisfaction level, the cool factor is not satisfaction. Cool factor has no point of return. It keeps on going. It's exponential. You can never be too cool. In my life stage, it went from Steve McQueen to Peter Fonda to Travis Pastrana. And what's next? Each generation has their own definition of cool, and there is no point of return. Now, customer satisfaction, that reaches a point where it stops. Adding another cup holder to a car doesn't make it better. Adding another USB port doesn't make it that much better. It reaches a point where I'm already satisfied. What's going to make it cool? And if you think about in your life, it's the same thing from a personal behavior perspective. First, you got to have air, water, and food to eat and drink. Then you look at, am I safe? Do I have a house over my head? And then you start looking social needs. Do I fit in? And then you start looking at, am I everything I can be? Self-esteem and self-actualization. And it is a pyramid there. If you take any one of those away, you will go back to replacing the one before it. If I hold your head underwater, you're not going to care how much money you're making tomorrow. The point is, it's a hierarchy of needs. If you have reached the point of self-esteem and self-actualization, you're being all that you can be because you've gone through that, and that is where the best brands lie. Think of it not in terms of you as a person, but a brand. Is your brand self-actualized? Is it at the top of the cool factor? Certainly, you got to have the customer satisfaction. That's like a rule of entry. You're there. You got to be there with the service and the product, but are you differentiating yourself? And you got to have the crazy ones. The guy right in the middle, he's the crazy one, right? That's why I love having it back. Bo hates doing this, but his family makes him do it. No, just kidding. These are your misfits, your rebels, your troublemakers. These are your round pegs trying to fit into a square hole called SEMA today. And I like the diversity. We have a suit coat. We have a guy in fat, shiny boots. We have a guy, Robert Egger, from Specialized, in a T-shirt. Bo, obviously, with a cup, and Aaron Levant in a jacket.
My best T-shirt.
That's your best T-shirt. That's cool. I love the diversity. That's what we want to talk about today as well. But you got to have the crazy ones, the next generation. Again, Steve Jobs quote, Why the crazy ones? Why the troublemakers? Because the ones crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that are and do. And that's what we want to hear from these folks. This is the Gemba today. I think a lot of action sports, one of my things, again, I don't know who I stole this from. I may have made it up, I don't know. But SEMA is to the auto industry what action sports is to the sports industry. It's not for everyone. It's much more individualized, it's much more extreme, it's much more personalized, it's much more customized. Surf, skate, snow are all there. My good friend Graham Brown, that's his quote, basically a generation, how many Gen O folks do we have here today? Between 18, or basically 10 and 29. Certainly no one under 18, hopefully. Pretty close. Good, there you go. I like that too. Nobody knows. But Gen O, I mean, how many people here sleep with their phone? Every Gen O does. How many people would spend their last $10 topping off their phone or their car or truck? Come on. No? You fill your car up first? Well, you take it to the dealer. Then take it to the store. But when you think about that, these are the folks that are changing the world. These are the folks who are going to buy a lot of the products and services that you see here out in the halls. That's the cool stuff. There's 3 brands there that I just chose as an example. Red Bull, Nike 6.0, and Oakley. My good friend Scott Bowers at Oakley used to say that you have to have purpose beyond reason. And that's really what it's all about. I mentioned going to the Gemba. Does anyone recognize that tagline, the headline I have there, right below the Gemba? Who knows where that's from? That's from Mark Zuckerberg. That is basically Facebook's motto. Move fast and break things. And that's really what customization and the performance industry is all about. Get out there and change things, disrupt things. And I mean that in a very positive way. Going to the Gemba for a lot of auto companies, auto manufacturers, and retailers and dealers is racing. But there's another Gemba. Who's been to the U.S. Open of Surf down in Huntington Beach? Pretty cool. I think someone told me that there were 1 million people there this year. 1 million people. And I'll bet every age. Because there's a lot of old guys like me that think they could surf. I never have, but think they could, at least in their mind they could. That was one of the coolest events you can see. And again, is it for everybody? Probably not. Are there zealots there, enthusiasts? Absolutely. But how do you commercialize that? How do you build a brand around something like that? We've got one of the experts here today, Aaron Levant, going to tell you about that whole world. And surf is certainly one part of it, racing and performance, another part, building those brands. Life is better in board shorts. I love that. My good friend Troy Lee, he's kind of like you, Aaron and Bo. He doesn't want to talk in front of folks. You get him in a room, though, he'll just tell you everything. But couldn't get him up. And I'm going to say that because it's recorded. We'll show him this clip to get him up here next year. But the point is, you have to have that purpose beyond reason. Tell the story. And who has seen the video Where the Trail Ends by Red Bull, Troy Lee, others specialized? Pretty cool, huh? The best way to connect with Gen O is to use a video, whether it's YouTube from the YouTube Awards this past week or something like a DVD, Where the Trail Ends. You have to crack the code. And once you crack the code, you have a secret recipe, a special sauce, whatever you want to call it, galvanizing. Galvanizing is probably one of the other verbs. I think GoPro it was one of them, and galvanizing is the other for customization. Bo will tell us about that. But if you look at just this one video and the people involved with something like that, Specialized, Troy Lee, GoPro, and how Agenda and Red Bull Media House give them opportunities or a platform to build the brands that are in that DVD. It's fantastic, and highly recommend you take a look at that. This isn't new stuff. One of the best guys that ever understood brand democracy and the integration of design thinking and social thinking was Henry Ford. If he asked people, if he went to and created a focus group and he asked them what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? If he stayed in school and learned everything from a book, he'd be very, very book smart and very street dumb. You need both book smarts and street smarts to put it together. And as I mentioned before, making the customer part of your story or making them part of your brand, he understood that very well. He got a letter. Remember, a lot of people living on farms in the early 1900s. Your vehicle lifted us out of the mud. Truly a working person's hero. He literally created a product that literally helped people have the life that we have today through cars and a great industry like we're all part of. It brought joy to our lives. That was a great quote. It's over 100 years old. Well, enough of me. You've heard enough of me. These are our speakers today. And again, we got a fantastic lineup. Troy Lee says that the best companies have the coolest cars at the SEMA show. I submit the best sessions have the coolest speakers. So kudos to you guys for being here. Really appreciate that. Bo Bachman's going to start off. Bo is the president and chief designer of Galpin Autosports, gas. Stuart Reed could not be here today. His wife was ill, so he obviously needs to be at her side. So Dr. Paul Van Hovens from Clemson University is going to tell you about the things they're doing to build the brand, which are manifested in that vehicle you see there, Deep Orange 3, and how they get the motivation. They're already up to Deep Orange 5 and 6 now that are on the drawing boards and being built in Greenville, South Carolina, and Paul will tell you about that. Robert Egger, chief designer of Specialized, 27 years. Got some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. How many?
I know I don't look it.
No, not at all. You don't. Like me, you can wear shiny pants and boots. The point is, we wanted to get the best people to get you here, get you the insights of what are some of the best performing brands in the world and how they're coming together from different areas. And not just automotive, bicycles, action sports, agenda, etc. Things that we want to get you, take it out of context a little bit so you can understand the content. And then certainly Aaron Levant with the founder of Agenda. How many folks have been to an Agenda show? Pretty cool, aren't it, Alex? I mean, wait till you hear this. And that's why Aaron's going to go last, because Aaron, think of the SEMA show 50 years from now. It'll probably take us that long to get there. You did it in 4, but it's going to be very interesting for the parallels. And again, as each of these guys present, I want you to start thinking, what do we want to ask them? Because I want the interaction, and there's going to be some disagreements and agreements, just like we had yesterday.